account. It's so
All right. Who we got here? I'm looking for people, participants. Oh, we got some folks coming in.
Yep.
Yeah, here they come. Tell us where you're from. Go into the chat. Hopefully you can chat. If not, let me see. Can you chat? I don't see chat.
There we go. Yeah, I see it.
Oh, yeah, there is. Okay.
San Diego, Boston in the house.
Salt Lake City. There's the chat. All right. That's what I want.
Sarah from Connecticut. Rhode Island. Ooh, UK. Fembro.
It's a long way.
Yeah.
Is that Imogen?
It's Allison.
Oh. Allison Patty. Patty?
Patty? Maybe?
Oh, you're welcome, Mary Beth. I have been looking forward to this. This for a couple of reasons. Number one, I've known Lori for a very long time, and I've always wanted to have her on the hot seat instead of being the other one. So this is going to be kind of fun.
Sure.
And I just think it is such a relevant topic in this day, especially with the economic climate that we're in and everything else. So as people are coming in, just, let us know. Ooh, Nina
Hey,
Sandy, Ottawa.
Kathleen.
That's where I'm from. That's where my family's from. They're still there. I'm actually going up there 10th of August. So that'll be fun.
Wow.
Get to see my family up there. We got Seattle. We got, who else we got?
My pal Kathleen from Seattle's there.
Yeah.
Kathleen.
Got Dallas. It's very hot and humid. Yeah, well, Ottawa doesn't install air conditioning. It's not a standard. Like, oh, I learned very early as a kid that you just sit there and don't move. If you don't move, you don't sweat. You just like. I didn't get out much. No, that's not true. Anyway.
Right.
All right, so coming on. How are we doing on timing here? 9:03. Let's give it a couple more minutes. Looks like we're getting
Yeah,
good
neither does Seattle.
coming in.
Kathleen's right. I grew up without it. My dad couldn't believe when I bought a car with air conditioning. He just thought it was so frivolous.
Air conditioning, automatic door, automatic windows. Those are, yeah, ours are like.
We're dating ourselves a
Roll
little
them
bit.
suckers down in the really, really hot vinyl in the summer. That was always, bring your towels, kids.
That's right.
All right. Coming along, got 25 now.
Yeah, I'm in the desert now, so I know all about air conditioning.
Yes, all about
Very
air
well.
conditioning. And dry noses.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
eyes.
And dry eyes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Blink, 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 blink. All right, Cincinnati.
Nice.
All right, we're about 9:04, 9:05, so we may just start if everybody's okay
Great.
with that. All right, so first of all, I just want to do a moment of gratitude, and that is I want to thank the Sales Enablement Society for being willing to support this topic and to host this session. The implications of this topic are so varied and they affect all of us. And so I'm very grateful for the opportunity to talk about it. Very grateful for the opportunity for me to talk with my good friend, Lori Richardson, who's considered a guru in this subject. So my name is Sheevaun Thatcher. I'm a VP of Slack Enablement at Salesforce. And diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging has been something that by itself has been something very, very important to me, but especially when you're looking into workspaces and how companies function and the type of attention or lack thereof that they're giving to these types of status has to be talked about. So that's what we're talking about today. So Lori, can you spend a minute or two introducing yourself, and then we're going to open up the first poll.
You bet. And I know we're jovial and smiling because we're such good friends. We go back a ways, but this is a very important topic. And I think we can have fun doing it while we're at it. My name's Lori Richardson. My pronouns are she, her, And I am president of Women Sales Pros, which is a community to help get more women into sales and sales leadership. I'm also the founder of a sales strategy firm called Score More Sales, and I'm just delighted to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Lori. So Maya, can you please open up the first poll? So what we'd like to get today to start with is just to find out the makeup of our audience. Where do you see yourself? Are you sales, enablement, marketing, product, operations? Just off the top, we'd just like to get a sense of who we have here.
Oh, lots of enablement folks. I love
Lots of
that
enablement.
because
That's not surprising.
it's not surprising, and it's
Yeah.
important that enablement have this conversation, because we don't always have it with enablement. We usually have it with sales and
Sales.
leadership. So
And there's someone from the C-suite is here. That's awesome. Operations, product, enablement, sales, all areas where DEI is definitely a hot topic. And that I think there's a lot of information that we can impart today. So I'm just thrilled that everybody is here. Maya, can you share the results? Interesting. Okay, thanks, Maya. So we'll just make that go away.
make it go away.
Maybe I can. Let's see if I just kill it. There we
I
go.
just clicked mine. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gone away. All right, so you wrote a book, and the book you wrote is called She Sells.
Yes.
And it is about, you said, attracting, promoting, and retaining great women in B2B sales. It's a fun read. It sounds just like you, which is awesome. As I'm going through it, I can hear your voice. In it, though, one of the very first things you tackle is something that you call the women in sales conundrum.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that.
Well, conundrum is just something you just can't, it's just hard to solve. And for me, the conundrum about women in sales is that there's so many different types of barriers that to align everything, like stacking dominoes so that they all, consistently fall all the way to the end. It's our challenge. We have systemic issues. We have issues within companies, and then women ourselves. So I'm trying to explain all the different potential areas that a leader, and book is really designed for leaders, leaders of sales and leaders of the company who really want to have more women on their sales teams, but they haven't been as successful as they wanted, or they want to promote women into leadership, but they've left. And this is an ongoing thing. I hear about it all the time, nearly every week. People reach out for different, either they're women that are frustrated in companies, or they're mostly men leaders who really want to make a change. And I commend them for working on it. I hope this book is seen as tactical as it's supposed to be, so that you can actually try things. And so, you need to think about just the issues that, first of all, sales has a bad name. It's had a bad rap for some time. Once you get over that, there are women who have never even heard that there's a B2B sales profession. Amazingly, I've run into a lot of folks like that. And so once you get women into it, sometimes they feel like they're in this, this boys club that they don't really want to be in, because tech and SaaS and many other industries are very male majority, because that's who's been running sales all these years. So once we get women in and we get them in the right role, and they're passionate about what they do, they excel, and they excel in leadership as well. So we want to show that just because maybe things are a little tighter, a little harder right now, had a lot of shifts in all sorts of aspects of our jobs and just work in general. This is still an important issue. And when we get more women on board, and when we get more diverse voices, revenues are stronger. So that's what I want to talk about today, is that it's not an either or. We don't have to go like, oh, cut training and cut cut the DEI folks, we've seen that, and it's frustrating because that doesn't help you to build your company.
No, it doesn't help to build the company at all. And it's, the analogy that's used in sales enablement a lot is the strength and conditioning coaches. The DEI teams are the strength and conditioning coaches to ensure that companies are doing the right thing.
I love that.
And when you cut those people out, you think you're winning and you don't know them and you don't need them. It's when you're not winning anymore and you don't have them, and then you're in trouble. So this is awesome. I mean, I love the book. Your book focuses, and you said you hope it has actionable. There are a ton of actionable things in it, a ton of them. Some of it has to do with the wording. Some of it has to do with activities that can be done. Some of it has to do with thought processes and words and whatnot. But one term that did stood out for me was one EST.
Yeah.
So EST, what does that mean in respect to DEI? And I added a B on the end because that appears to be the belonging, appears to be new and coming. DEIB is like, why is it so important? Why is this EST so important?
Yeah, I like EST because it talks about things that are important to women. And this is based on some anecdotal research, some research that is in progress. E is for ethics. Women want to work for companies that have good ethics. Mm-hmm. They want to know what the company stands for. They want to see it on the wall, whether it's your digital wall or your wall at headquarters. We want to know what the company stands for, and we want to stand for good companies. And we've seen women leave companies when there's all sorts of internal issues and things going on. Because we don't need that. And I think that's something to consider. What do you stand for as your company? And I know that people that are up and coming in business care about that as well, both men and women. S is for safety. I need to feel safe. And if I do come into a very male majority team, explain to me how I can voice my concerns and how can I stand up as a leader, and what's my path, which leads to the final thing, the T, which is for training. One of the biggest issues is particularly in the startup world that we've seen over time is that there was never like a formal plan for promotion. And I want to know if I come to your company, Sheevaun, what are my odds? Which routes can I go? Because I want to know that in advance, because I'm a planner. And I think that a lot of women that I've talked to are similar in that idea.
Yeah, we're going to touch on that a little bit in a bit. So how do we get our leaders to change? And we're not talking just male leaders. We're talking female, we're talking every leader. At every level in an organization needs responsibility for ensuring that their people are included, that it's diverse and they're included. Give us some ideas. I mean, we're going to talk about words in a moment, but how do we change? What do we do? What are some of the basics?
Well, by nature, a leader needs to be open to new ideas. Leaders try things out, right? We A/B test and see what works. We ask our team. One great example, I have a colleague in the Bay Area. His name is Shep Maher. He's been on a couple of panels representing the male point of view in all of this. And even though he's done so many great things in his company to make it very inclusive, he'll still ask people, like, what could I do better? What am I missing? And that's what good leaders and that's what great leaders do, is that they don't just assume, yeah, we got this, we got a couple of women on our team. It's diverse. We have some Black and brown folks, we did our part, but that's not the belonging piece. Like, how do I feel a part of it?
Yeah, you got the diversity, okay, but you don't have the inclusion. You certainly don't have the belonging. Yeah. Now that's really important. So talking about words, as if we've all learned over our careers, and those who are maybe newer in their careers may not have it yet, but you will, that words have a lot of power. And there's a lot of goodness. There can also be a lot of stigma associated with it. And if we're not conscious about the words that we use, it can have a negative effect, not only in the way jobs are written up or the way conversations occur or how we even describe situations, like me describing the strength and conditioning coaches.
Yeah.
There's some people have no idea what that is, right?
Yeah.
And so that's an analogy that just doesn't fit as an example. So talk to a little bit about what are some of the words that you hear or phrases that you hear that you think are negative and should be done differently, and then what kind of alternatives are there?
Yeah, I think maybe negative isn't the word for me, but I think it's just not an inclusive word. And some of those would be all of the war words. So, killer, let's kill the competition, for example. I've seen trade show booths with these words in our industry in the last 5-6 years. As a matter of fact, there is a current company, I won't name them, but they call their members savages. And that's not only a war word, it's racist as well. And that's today, and that's someone who thinks that they're in the loop on this. So, we need to get rid of these words that talk about killing and maiming and hurting people, because that doesn't inspire me at all.
No.
Yeah.
No, and it's kind of scary. I know I've heard myself say things like short control bursts and stuff like that. I don't say that anymore. That does not come across. Even in it, when we're going beyond the kill words, there's other phrases like stand and deliver. This is something I used all the time. And then somebody said, a lot of people can't stand.
Oh.
So instead, the new phrase, and I got this from Salesforce, the news phrase is show you know.
Oh.
So rather than stand and deliver, just call it show you know. And that helps with that situation right there.
Yeah, and just to know that what you're saying might be unhelpful to someone is reason to change it. It's not about being all, people say, oh, you have to be politically correct. And
they're so woke. Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's
I'm
just,
okay with that when someone says that to me. I'm like,
let's just speak in ways that resonate with a broader group of people. I used to be an auctioneer. I don't know if you know that, Sheevaun.
I did not know that, but it does not surprise me.
I was a charity auctioneer at black tie galas, and what you want is broad appeal. You want more of the audience to be interested than less of the audience. And I think that that's the case when we're working with teams as leaders as well. Oh, and yeah, someone put sports, war, violence.
Yeah.
Now I happen to be someone who loves certain sports. For example, my son played Division I college hockey, and he played professionally. And we had hockey players that lived at our house. I mean, I've seen over 1,000 games probably. And so I love hockey, and I love the artistry, not the violence, and not but
skate,
I know that a lot of
to where the puck is going to be.
Yeah, right. Wayne Gretzky. That's right. So, but I don't push that on people, and that's something that a lot of male leaders tend to do, is they use sports analogy after sports analogy, and they'll say, well, I hate to use another sports analogy. And I would say, anyway. Don't, right? Just change it up, find some other ways to give analogies, and throw a sports analogy in once in a while if you love sports like I do. I mean, I have some great stories I love to share, but it's not going to be the predominant way that I present to a diverse group.
Yeah, and one thing I've done is I stopped doing the geographically restricted sports analogies. Right. So, if you're talking about real football, it's soccer around the world, right?
Yeah.
Most people understand that. So having conversations about World Cup right now, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Especially, Canada won and US tied, and we're all doing it.
Yeah.
So there's things like that, and there are places, and we can put it in. I can send it to the SES group, send it to Maya, and she can post it, of a document I sent to you, for example, that has examples of all of these kinds of words where you can change the way that works. So we can share that. We can share that larger.
Love that document.
So we're going to talk about culture, but right now I have two terms and I would love to get your feedback on both of them and what you think of them. There is culture fit, which is what we hear all the time, especially everybody right now that is in the process of trying to change jobs, do all of that. You hear
Yeah.
culture fit versus culture add.
Yeah.
What would you say about both of those?
I mean, that's something I would say as a majority person. I didn't understand this, years ago when we talked about, well, we want to make sure that new person coming in fits our culture. They're a good culture fit. What that really means is that they're like us. They're like us.
Yeah.
And so, and I've heard people say it 100 different ways. I want people that are not like us, because I want diversity of ideas and I want new thoughts and a new approach to solve an old issue. We've seen how well that works. I know that when I took over a sales territory in my second job in my career, I was in my early 20s, and the person whose territory I took over was a very aggressive male. And he missed out on getting a request for proposal that was a multi-million-dollar opportunity because the buyers didn't like him, because he was too arrogant and he was very pushy. And I got the opportunity to come in with them and with the company. We worked really hard and we won that deal within 90 days of me coming on board. So that wasn't because I was a woman, but it was because I had a totally different approach. And because we told them that he was not there anymore. So it won out. And that's an example of just bringing something different. And so a culture add enhances what we already have in place. It makes it better. Is that how you would define it?
That's exactly how I would define it. In fact, as you know, I went through some interview process last summer.
Yeah.
And they were asking me, do you think you're going to be a culture fit? And I said, God, I hope not. I want to be a culture fit. I want to be a culture add. I want to bring something new to you and some new ideas and things like that. And so I think the culture add gives us the ability to be who we are, number one. And it also gets people to think, because it's just such a simple turn of phrase. And people go, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense. A culture add.
Yeah.
Right. And people want to buy from people that look like them. And our audience, not only is it across all of the genders, but it is across all of the ethnicities. It is across all of the various generations.
Yep.
If you do not have that diversity, and all it is a bunch of management by intimidation, old sellers that are trying to do the work, it's not going to happen. And so that's so important. Let's open up poll number 2. We just want to get a sense from the folks that are on the call, how big your teams are. So is it just you? Are you an army of one? 1 to 5, 6 to 10, over 50. Lots of 1 to 5s. Okay, lots of small teams.
A little bit of everybody.
Yeah, a little bit of everybody. Some big one, little one. Okay, but it looks like the 1 to 4, 1 to 5 seems to be around the standard. So can you just show the poll, Maya? Share the results. So that looks pretty much what we see out there in the industry too, around the enablement side, because there's a lot of enablement people here.
Yeah.
But I mean, for me, it gives me some happiness in that the just you used to be the biggest one, right? Armies of one, but now companies are actually investing. Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you everybody for that. I'm going to stop, make that go away. There we go. So we talk about making sure that in the hiring process, you get the right people to come to the hiring process.
Yeah.
But it's not that easy, right? I mean, there are things that people have to do to actually get people to show up, get that diversity of talent to show up. Give us a couple of ideas there, and then I'm going to take you on to onboarding after that. So what are some of the ideas that companies can use or different approaches they can take to get the right audience to come forward?
Well, the first thing is that I want to say that it's probably harder. It's probably going to take a little more time in the craziness of tech before this little respite that we've experienced lately. People just didn't have the time. They didn't have the time. Everything was so fast, so fast, so fast. Well, you got the time now. And I would say you should be building your pipeline for people all along. In sales, we build our revenue pipeline, but we also need to build our people pipeline as we're going along. And we need to reach out to different places to find different folks. So I want to encourage people to look at places where there are similar, there are traits that would be very helpful, like the hospitality industry is a really great feeder for sales. In many of us, I was a server, in a restaurant. I worked in a restaurant. I was also a teacher. I was a preschool teacher before I got into my first sales role. And teachers can make very good sellers as well, and leaders. So look at more unconventional places. We talk in the book about some different resources for that. Also, ask. Yeah, thank you.
This is the book. Just
yours is a little blurry because of your background, but mine's clear. So
okay. Yours is
we do have some of these to give away. Actually, if you're in the U.S., I'm going to be. I'd love to give away a few copies while we're on this call today. But look where you didn't look before. Talk to people you didn't talk to. Someone was telling me, I heard a part of a podcast. I think it was Alice, my friend Alice Hyman, that referred this. She said, listen at 6 minutes in, and the woman was saying, we are supposedly looking for a diverse team, and we're working to build a diverse team. And then we go home to our neighborhood where it's not diverse in many cases. And we talk to our friends who are not diverse in many cases. And I would encourage people to, stretch more and make some new friends and go into different cultures and all sorts of differences, age related. As I get older, I'm more concerned about that I don't get pushed out or become invisible because of my age. I mean, that's what happens in tech. I was downsized in my 40s in tech, and they thought that was too old at the time when I was downsized. So I'm a lot older than that now. so I just want
you look gorgeous, my friend. Gorgeous.
Oh, thank you. But those are things. Do you have do you talk to diverse people in the course of your day, or is it just on LinkedIn for the the few people that you're relating to? I say look for new friends, make new friends, and get people's points of view and respect what they have to say.
That's awesome. Thank you, Lori. Okay, so got them hired, but it doesn't stop there. Let's talk about the onboarding. How do you make sure that the onboarding is also designed for DEI and B?
Right. I've worked with companies where they were like, well, we brought people in, so
got the numbers.
Good luck. Hope that works out. And in many cases, it did not work out. And women from the research and the people I've talked to, we will leave if we don't feel appreciated, if we don't feel like our ideas are being heard, if I'm being passed over or I feel like I'm being passed over for leadership time after time, or for a promotion time after time. I'm going to leave because there's so many other places that are looking for strong sellers that it's not going to be a problem. And I think that a lot of women know that. So the onboarding, I think for me, and you're the enablement person, but I would say consistency. You need to do the same thing for everybody. In terms of the process, so that I feel like I'm not getting something different or less than what the others got. I don't know. What would you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is this inherent gentlemanly thing that happens where, especially when folks are being tested during the new hire, that if it's a man that's giving the presentation, people give a lot of really great feedback. If it's a woman giving the presentation, they hold their feedback back a little bit because they don't want to hurt their feelings. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Right? We want to have I call that artificial harmony. I mean, it doesn't do anybody any good.
Yeah.
Right? You need to have those critical conversations. Otherwise, during these new hire programs, you need to have everybody trained at the same level. They need to be able to go out there as a consistent force, consistent voice.
Yeah.
Right? It's like the army, right? We call it the army of one, but it's not. The army says, bring everybody in. We're going to teach you all the same thing. And then you're going to go out as one big army.
And I'd like to throw another idea out there. For some reason, people think that when I'm speaking about sales as a woman, that this is what all the other women should hear, and not necessarily everybody. I mean,
I'm
the
thrilled
subtitle
that there's men on this call.
Yeah.
Surprised. Thrilled.
Yeah, thank you guys. The subtitle of my book is Attract, Promote, and Retain Great Women in B2B Sales. It wasn't written for women in sales.
Yeah.
It was written for people looking to hire more women and promote them, which is typically in business, it's typically men. And yet I've had a CEO of a company, everybody knows their name, who said to me, I'm going to give this to all the women on my team. And I said, okay. But I think you kind of missed the point. I've had trade show booths set up where men will walk by. We have books written by women all about sales, and my podcast. I don't get a lot of male people commenting on about the podcast when we post it on LinkedIn. So I think there's that bias for sure, that I must be talking about things for women. This is for sellers. I run a sales strategy firm. So that's important.
This is DEI for sellers.
Yeah. This isn't what I don't have a separate program for women, but we do know some of the research. I got to do a little research with Dr. Joelle Laban.
Yeah.
We didn't finish it actually. Like things just happened and we didn't get it done. But what it was showing, and I would love to finish it at some point, is that women just tend to have a little more in terms of our traits and things that we're focused on when it comes to selling, and it is a little bit different. So we might want to give up the monotonous, onboarding, reading, having the CEO come in and talk for an hour, make it more engaging and entertaining and helpful, and then just give them the tools that they need to be successful. I know in the case in very male majority companies and teams that there may be teams spread out all over the US, for example, and one woman on one team and one or two women on another team, and they're not seeing each other, they're not talking to each other. And those, if they get together quarterly or twice a year, that can be extremely helpful too.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, when you talk about the impact that women can have in sales, the top and the biggest deals I've ever seen in my career have all been closed by people with names like Kim, Kari, Sharon, right? And those are three real people, and they've closed deals that netted them, $1 million compensation checks. I mean, it's just like, wow. There is a lot of impact that women can have in these deals. And it's, if you don't put them in, you're never going to know. And so you've got to be able to include them.
And if you look at the universities that are teaching sales programs, you'll see that women win most. They're the top winners are women in all across the country. I've seen this in all different universities because I'm part of the advisory board of the Sales Education Foundation. It doesn't always translate to business, but we know that a lot of the stats that people have shown show how strong women are. And I don't ever want to say women are better than men at sales, because it doesn't matter to me. What matters is if we're as good, why aren't half the sales team women?
Yeah.
That's all I want to know. Why aren't half the sales leaders women?
Right. And a lot of it has to do with hiring. A lot of it has to do with
one half.
Yeah. A lot of it. Yeah. So here's a big one.
Yeah.
Promotions. I know that so many times I hear about women that have been passed over for promotions. I have been, when you know that you are far more capable of the person that got it.
Yeah.
And so what do we have to do to change that? I know part of it is we have to have the gravitas and the willingness and work through our fears in a lot of cases to go and put our names in, right?
Yes.
Get beyond the, I have to know 100% of it.
Yeah.
Men don't. Men are like, hey, I know how to do 60% of it and the rest I'll learn on the job. I'm going for it.
Yeah.
We need to have that same type of approach, right? And we can
Yeah.
do it. And I know it's damn scary. And I posted a thing last couple of weeks ago about, I want to do this, then do it, but I'm scared. Then do it scared, right? Just
I love
do
that.
it. Because if you don't do it, you'll never get a yes.
Yeah. Correct.
So that's
And-
part of it. So that's a
Yeah.
little proselytizing I just did. But Lori, you take it from the, what can we do? What can companies do
Yeah.
to support the proper promotion and ensuring as well, and I know this is a whole different topic, that women and, non-traditional sellers are paid fairly.
Yeah. That's another session we should do sometime. Yeah. First of all, women should not wait to be tapped on the shoulder. It just doesn't happen. This is what I talk about. And there's been some research about women in school, in college, universities, how women are heads down, getting their work done, and they're excelling. Then they go into the corporate world and they have their head down and they're doing their work and they're not shaking hands and meeting all the folks that are potentially able to help promote them in the future. And so there's that piece that I think we're working really hard to teach women about that you need to get out of your comfort zone and you need to make connections with people that are important in your company. And I just think that's a good idea anyway. And being in a new company, getting to know all a wide swath of colleagues is very important. So don't wait for that. And you have to have a little bit of self-reflection. Most of us have a hard time seeing our shortcomings. So I do say it's really good to get outside opinions about your work if you can. So if I just say, oh, I got passed over for promotion because I'm a woman. So a lot of people say, well, how do you know that was the case? So then if I can compare, and if I have salary information, if I have all these different things, I can go back and have a conversation with my leadership to say, what am I missing? What didn't I do? What do I need to do? The problem for a lot of people I've talked to recently is that they're getting vague answers.
Mhm.
They're not getting a real detailed list of, here are the 3 things that we don't see in you that if you can develop those, you're next in line for a leadership role. So we need.
Yeah, I wasn't even getting that. I was getting, we've just gone a different direction.
Yeah, it's just not good enough.
And
It's not.
that would be away from me is the
Yeah.
direction you're going? Yeah. Why?
So how can enablement help solve that problem in companies? I would love to know that. I would, because I think that you all can help with that, because it's just kind of like, I remember when my son was in youth hockey, he had a hockey coach and the coach said one thing, my son said something else. They, it never matched up and we never got anywhere. And, he ended up, quitting and going to a different team. So I think it's really important that we are able to get some good feedback. Leaders need to give good feedback. You can't write people off either. Like, oh, I don't like that person didn't do what I said, so I'm not going to help them anymore. You can't do that as a leader. You got to keep trying.
No, you can't. And feedback is not, you're doing a great job.
Right.
That's not feedback.
Yeah.
Feedback is, you're doing a great job because I saw you do this, this, and this was the result of it. Keep that up. That's really good. Here are some other areas you might look at. So the feedback has to be real. It can't be pat, you're doing a great job. That's just not enough.
Yeah. I saw someone share, Carla, it's difficult when the loudest people get promoted versus the people heads down getting the work done.
Yeah, because the impact of that is the morale on a team will just plummet. Because the folks that are getting maybe it's seen from the outside as woohoo, they got promoted, yay. But internally on your team, it's going to crumble because these folks that have been doing a lot of the work are seeing the ones that have the, more attention drawn to them or are more extroverted, if you will, are the ones getting their promotions. And these people are like, what about us? Yeah. And so these people, these are usually the really hard workers, the ones that really get it. Gone, and they leave your company, and then you're in trouble. And so there has to be a mechanism where their voices get heard as well. Yeah, agreed. So that leads me to the next one, which is all around culture. Speaking of that, you have a quote in your book from Mother Teresa that I absolutely love, and I'm just going to read it. It says, "I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the water to create many ripples." God, I love that. I think that's awesome. So from a culture perspective, how do we create these ripples? What could these ripples be? Just wax poetic a little bit. If it was a perfect world, Lori, what would that look like? What could it look like?
Well, internally within your company, you might ask leadership about, since our buyers are very diverse, I'm noticing that our sellers are not. What are we going to do about that? Or do you have a plan? Are you looking for ideas? And be very non-antagonistic. People don't like to be put on the spot. I have found out the hard way about that over time. And, it's just like when I see an all-male panel, if there are 4 or 5 people, which we call a manel, right? And if there's 4 or 5, and if they're white males, that is even, don't even get me started. But it's like you couldn't find a woman. I mean, what I like to remind people of is just imagine me as, I'm new in the sales world, and I look up and I see that we have men on the main stage. We have loud men, in a lot of cases. We have men on panels. We have men writing most of the sales books. So who runs sales? It's not women. It's not women. So if you like that narrative, that's fine, and keep doing what you're doing. But if you think, there is room for some change here, I would say, we at Women Sales Pros, we post lists of books that are written by women about sales. They're not about books for women in sales. They're about books on sales. And there's some
written by women. That's
written by women, excellent authors and speakers. And, I don't want to throw out some names because there's so many women, but let's just say there's 100 books like that. And so we don't have to have the same old books. Podcasts, that there are over 40 podcasts that are hosted or co-hosted by women about sales and revenue growth. I mean, most people don't know that. They know of 1 or 2. And so we need to do different things, mix it up more, ask a woman on the team to bring in a book that, that they've read that they like. And it may not be a book written by a woman, by the way, but just to get people sharing more. I think that could be a really good start.
Yeah, no, I agree totally. I think that's awesome. So any last words you want to bring before we open? Well, actually, you know what? Let's open it up for questions right now. We've got about, let's say we've got 10 minutes or so of questions, and then we've got 5 minutes where we can do a wrap up. Okay. So if you have a question, feel free to, I think you can unmute yourself. Can they unmute themselves?
Oh, yeah. And I don't know.
How do we encourage more young women to enroll in the sales programs at universities?
Great question. I'd love to answer that. And people can put questions in that question and answer.
Yeah, if you put them in the Q&A, then we can get them from there.
It's an easy place to see them. It's interesting because parents have a lot of input on what their kids do in colleges and universities. So I would say you need to talk to, I talk to students in high school and even younger, just to let them know that there's this career called sales, professional selling. and that there are huge opportunities for women in it right now, and that it's flexible. It's just a most wonderful profession if you find products and services that you believe in, that you believe can help people or even the world. It can be the most wonderful profession that you could have. So I like to start younger. By the time people get to college, people go a safe route, or we know most students don't really even know what they're doing when they start school. I've seen professors of sales programs talk to students and meet with them and say, you could be really good in this. Why don't you give it a try and take a 100-level class? And so there are a number of different ways to do it. I think by sharing, this is why I do the podcast, to share stories about women that are in sales right now and how they, see their career. And so to listen to all the different stories that are out there, that can be helpful as well.
Yeah. And there is a children's book, right? John Barrows and his daughter wrote a children's book about sales. So
he did.
That was very cool.
It's a great book. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. So that was a good one. And there are a number of university programs for sales as well.
Yes. The Sales Education Foundation, if you Google it, has a whole publication, a PDF that you can just flip the pages. And there's even listings by state where there are schools near you. So, and I'm happy to talk to people after the fact who might want to know more about that.
Awesome. Other questions? Maya was saying you can either put up your hand or here's one. All right. What's the best messaging to use when bringing this topic of DEIB to sales leadership without the eye rolls? Well, I can start with, sometimes you're not going to be able to avoid the eye rolls. They might eye roll anyway, but I think you can still have good messaging. Lori?
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to Hang Black about this recently, and her comment was, I'm not even mentioning DE&I, and I'm just starting my conversation. It's leading into this because that can happen. We don't want to turn people off, but yeah, sometimes people need to just pay attention and listen. Mm-hmm. Change makers, we're out there at the cutting edge, and we're taking a stance that isn't always, it's not the majority idea. And sometimes you just got to put yourself out there.
And we also have an obligation, I think, that those of us that are leaving companies, and some of the reasons we're leaving are around these topics, we must feel comfortable. And I think it's an obligation of us that during our exit interviews, we let them know. Because if it always stays as an undercurrent and it's never out there as being a real issue, companies are just as concerned with attrition as they are with performance.
Yeah. And
so why are people attriting? If they're attriting, and a lot of it has to do with not being included, with the lack of diversity, with the pay inequity, whatever it is, those things will never get known unless we talk about them. And if it happens to be in the exit interview, that's too late to fix it for that person, but it could still fix it for the next one coming in.
That's an excellent point. What a huge cost attrition is. Oh. And in sales, it's not just retraining someone, but it's the cost of the deals that were out there that the next person doesn't even know about. That
they don't know about it, and the customers aren't going to wait for them to be to get up to speed on the deal. They're going to go, you know what? I'm also talking with this company over here. They know what I want. You guys aren't ready for me. I'm going over here. Yeah. It's millions of dollars now. And it's not just the re-ramping of someone new. It's all the lost revenue when somebody attrits.
It's big money.
Yeah, big money.
And I didn't even know
so they will pay attention to that information, but we have to provide it.
Yeah, I'm going to use that word attrits today because it's really cool.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
Next one, let's see. Do you have any recommendations for people new to sales or enablement looking for a female mentor in a predominantly male market?
Yeah, I'd say reach out to me, because I have, depending on the industry, I'd be happy to share some different people that I know, and happy to share. There are also groups like Women in Sales run by Alexine Moudwar, where there is a big community of women. Oh yeah, and the podcast, Sheevaun, Conversations with Women in Sales. Sheevaun was a guest on one of the podcast episodes, and we have over 170 interviews with women and some men, some of our male allies, and some book reviews and topical as well. But there's lots more now than there ever was. And I would say other podcasts, Wesleyan does a great podcast. Tiffany Bova has been doing a podcast forever. It's wonderful. So lots of resources.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of mentors. Like I put
Oh.
myself out there as a mentor. Other folks do as well.
Yeah, and Stephanie Boyer is on here. Dr. Boyer is hosting a women's event at their sales competition at
There she
Bryant
is.
University, November 10th. Oh, we're invited. That's awesome.
Yay.
And that's fantastic. Stephanie Boyer is another voice that's really advocating. Mary Shea, Hang Black. There's a lot of us out there that are really talking things up. And so get in the realm of following those folks on LinkedIn. And thanks, Stephanie, for mentioning that.
Yeah, that's awesome. How can we reach out to the two of you? We have secret. We're stealth. You can't get us.
You'll never
No, it's
find
pretty
it.
easy, actually. You can reach out to me by going to my first name at gmail.com. It helps when I was born when the earth was cooling that I did get my first name at gmail.com. So
That's so
I'm very
cool.
proud. Somebody mentioned that, right? Some guy I
Yeah.
was talking to yesterday, clearly a 20-something, going, oh my God, how did you do that? And I was like,
It was back in the day when
back in the day, I think I was like number 8,000 on Gmail. Anyway, so it was, it's just my first name at gmail.com. You can also reach out to me through LinkedIn. Happy to answer questions on LinkedIn. And Lori, what's the best way to contact you?
Look for me. I'm at Score More Sales, most places, on Instagram, LinkedIn, X. Is it called X now? We won't go there.
No.
And I do not have just my first name, because mine is a little more common, but it's Lori at womensalespros.com. If anyone is interested, the Women's Sales Pros site has a blog with a number of resources, and we're going to build even more as we come up to Inbound and Dreamforce coming up in September.
That's awesome. And the Sales Enablement Society site, it has been totally revamped, and we'll be adding a lot of stuff there as well, Lori. So Del Nacke, who's actually on this call, hi Del. Del Nacke is running that process. So I'd love for you and she to get together and kind of build up some of that there as well. I think it'd be great.
Do you see this question? What can male allies do to support no leaders? I'm not sure that.
What can male allies do to support? Yeah, that's a big one. Go, Lori.
Speak up. I mean, recommend a woman. There's a gentleman named Riley, I think it's Blazel, I'm not sure of his last name, on LinkedIn, that whenever they're often men that will post, who are the good people to follow on LinkedIn, and it'll be guy after guy after guy after guy. And then Riley has this list of, I don't know, maybe 50 different names of women, people of color, Black and brown folks, and just a wonderful variety of people that are posting really great content. And he'll stick that whole thing on there. And he's an account executive at a company, and he shows up all the time and does that. So you don't have to be a leader to make a difference like that.
You don't. Like, I know in a lot of times, and everybody here I'm sure has felt it, is you're in a meeting, you say something, nobody responds, the guy next to you says it, and they'll go, oh, that's a great idea. You as a supporter, whether you're male or female, this doesn't just apply to men, as a supporter, you go, you know what, Frank, I love that. Now, Mary, you started this conversation. Frank, I love that you're putting emphasis on it. Mary, let's get back to you. Tell us more about what it is that you were talking about. It's like, don't let that person take it. Thank them for emphasizing it, and then go back to the person who actually said it. And you have to feel comfortable enough doing that to make change.
And I'd like to ask you about, if I could, Sheevaun, about another thing. This is very controversial when someone says something inappropriate in a meeting. Now, I don't like to attack someone, I don't like to target, and yet if you don't say something in a room full of people, if something is very inappropriate and you do it outside of the room, which some people suggest, the rest of the room doesn't know, they see that no one did anything. Do you know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying. And my approach there is, rather than a direct attack, my approach there has been, I couldn't help but notice that your questions seem to focus just on this group. How would you rephrase it to include everybody?
So be thoughtful.
Be thoughtful, give them, don't let it go by.
Yeah.
But be thoughtful and give them the opportunity to correct. And a lot of times, especially if it doesn't feel like an attack, they'll come back and go, I'm not sure, how should I do it? There's your opportunity. But that one phrase, I couldn't help but notice.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of saying, I can't believe you just said that.
And I heard of a leader who heard another leader senior to her saying something very inappropriate. She just got up and walked out of the meeting instead of, saying something to the person. So everyone
if it's that offensive and then that can have an impact too.
Yeah. So it's something to think about, how you would handle things. And we need to be ready to handle something that is inappropriate.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't have to do it in a, I hate the term aggressive, assertive.
Right.
I mean, people switch them out depending on how they talk about women.
Yeah, it's
you
not
can
about
do it in
making
a way
look
of
bad.
curiosity.
Right.
I'm being inquisitive.
Yes.
But you have to do it.
Yes. So thanks for that question about being an ally.
Yeah, that's
Need more male allies. We need you.
We need more allies. Yep.
Yeah.
Need more. Okay. How are we doing on timing? We've got 3 minutes left. So, Miss Lori.
Yes.
Sorry, it's my 17 years in Georgia made me do that. Highest form of respect, Miss Lori. Why don't you bring us home? What are some advice that you have in the last few minutes for the audience that's on here around this topic about how to make more diverse sales teams? Just some last thoughts you might have.
Yeah, start building the pipeline. So start looking at different places where you can find your next employees, no matter where they are, whether it's sales or, some part of the go-to-market movement. Start looking, build your relationships now. It's just like they say, if you want shade, when's the best time to plant a tree? It's not today. It was years ago. But, the next best day is today. So start building new relationships and listen to, not just our podcast, but listen to other podcasts and hear different women's stories about how they feel like they've been passed over for promotion. Someone told me 8 times. This was something in the last week. And I thought, wow, that's a lot. I probably would. And that was with 2 companies. So, there's more to that story, but I want to know more. I want to understand more. So be curious. Just like you were talking about, Sheevaun, be curious and keep learning, and don't think you know it all, because once you do that, game over.
Yeah. I mean, mine is watching my biases. I'm much more conscious of my biases now. I'm much more conscious of the war words that I use. This is the way that we talk for many, many years. That is not an excuse. That is, we have to be conscious of how we're saying things. And even that simple thing about show, as opposed to stand and deliver was a big one for me. And I was like, yeah.
That's great. I feel like we could talk for another hour.
Oh, I'm sure we could. And Probably set something up to do that. But
We'll have
right
to
now
do that.
we are at time. So thank you everybody for attending. Love that you came. Love the comments that have gone in here. You know how to reach either of us. This is such an important thing, and it's such a part of how companies are going to succeed in the future, because the generations are changing, and ignoring this as something that needs to be tackled by companies, they are going to suffer greatly if they do. And
Yeah.
you on the phone here are ones that clearly care about it and can be some of the catalysts to get it going.
Now's
So
the
thanks,
time.
everybody.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
thanks, Lori.
Thank you, Sheevaun. It's my pleasure.
And we'll just bring it home. Bye-bye.